Imagine a line of men in three-piece suits waiting 3 hours for a bowl of thin soup. Now, imagine that just a few miles away, the government is ordering farmers to destroy millions of gallons of milk and slaughter livestock to stabilize prices. This wasn't a natural disaster. It wasn't a bad break. It was a choice. In 1929, the United States had the money, the tools, and the warning signs to stop the worst economic collapse in its history. And the people in charge chose not to use them. What followed wasn't simply mass panic. It was the result of policy decisions, rigid ideology, and priorities that placed international finance above the lives of millions. Welcome to the Financial History Channel. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the Great Depression, not as an accident, but as a man-made crisis that was knowingly allowed to deepen. The real story is more disturbing and far more relevant to our world today than you've been led to believe. The official explanation is neat and comforting. The stock market crashed on October 29, 1929, Black Tuesday. Speculation ran wild, credit was too cheap, and the system collapsed. Case closed. But here's the problem. Stock market crashes don't automatically turn into decade-long depressions. The crash was the spark, not the fuel. The true damage came from what happened before the crash, and, more importantly, what happened after. To understand that, we need to talk about the most powerful institution in American finance, the Federal Reserve. By the late 1920s, the Federal Reserve faced a dilemma. The world was on the gold standard. Benjamin Strong, the influential head of the New York Fed, was the only man who understood the delicate dance between gold and global credit. He was the pilot. But in 1928, the pilot died. With Strong gone, the steering wheel of the global economy was left in the hands of theorists and bureaucrats, men more interested in cleaning the system than saving it. The Fed shifted course. Interest rates were raised. Credit was tightened, not just to curb speculation, but to protect U.S. gold reserves. From the late 1920s through the early 30s, the U.S. money supply collapsed by roughly 1/3. The Fed didn't just fall asleep at the wheel. They steered the plane into the mountain to see if it would bounce. When the economy began to weaken, they had the power to respond. They chose not to. By early 1929, the system was already brittle. The Bank of England was hemorrhaging gold, and its ability to stay on the gold standard depended on the U.S. keeping credit tight. Rather than easing credit to protect domestic stability, American policymakers prioritized international financial commitments. The result? A credit crunch that made the entire financial system dangerously fragile. So, when panic finally hit Wall Street in October, the collapse wasn't random. It was the predictable outcome of a system already starved of liquidity. Here's a fact most people don't know. After the crash, the economy actually showed signs of stabilization in early 1930. Production leveled off. Markets calmed. At this point, the damage could still have been contained. What came next didn't just deepen the crisis, it locked it in for a decade. In June of 1930, President Herbert Hoover signed the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, raising barriers on 20,000 imported goods. Over 1,000 economists signed a petition begging him not to do it. They warned of retaliation. They warned of a global collapse. They were right. Within 2 years, global trade fell by 2/3. This wasn't an accident. Powerful industries lobbied for these protections to shield themselves, even if it meant sacrificing the broader economy. Protection for a few, pain for millions. Between 1930 and 1933, over 9,000 American banks failed. The Federal Reserve was created specifically to be a lender of last resort to prevent this. Treasury Secretary Andrew Mellon famously argued that the economy needed to be liquidated. Mellon believed failure would purge the rottenness from the system. He wanted labor, farms, and banks to fail so something stronger could emerge. But there was another consequence. While small-town banks were liquidated, the large, well-connected institutions didn't just survive, they feasted. It was the ultimate Great Reset. When Franklin Roosevelt took office in 1933, he delivered a knockout blow to private wealth. Under Executive Order 6102, it became a criminal act for Americans to own monetary gold. Think about the audacity. The government forced you to hand over your sound money at $20 an ounce, only to devalue the dollar and reprice that same gold at $35 an ounce just months later. It was a 40% overnight tax on every citizen who followed the law. It was the largest peacetime confiscation of wealth in history. The Depression didn't end immediately, but the rules of the system had permanently changed. Power over money was now centralized in a way Americans had never seen before. So, was it an accident? Or was it a series of deliberate choices to centralize power? The Great Depression proves that when the experts are forced to choose between the stability of the system and the survival of the citizen loses every single time. We see the same patterns today: centralized credit, global trade tensions, and a government that views your savings as their liquidity. If you want to see the next collapse coming, stop looking at the charts. Start looking at the people holding the pen. If you found this video eye-opening, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who still thinks the Great Depression was just a bad day on Wall Street. This is the Financial History Channel. Follow the money, and you'll find the truth.